Yo, what's going on guys, Arekkz here, welcome back to another Division video. It's the weekend, which of course means it is time for another vendor reset. I apologise there haven't been videos for this for the past couple of weeks. I have been super busy on the weekends and just haven't had a chance to get around to making these, so I do apologise, but they are now back and will continue from this point forward. In fact, this is the first reset officially since 1.6 has dropped. Also, just before I get started, for those of you guys that were asking a while ago whether I would ever be bringing back the Gone Rogue t-shirts that I sold last year, then they are available just for this weekend only until the end of Sunday, so if you guys want to grab them yourself, you can find a link to the Teespring store in the description box down below. But let's get started. First up, at the special equipment vendor, of course, it is worth noting now, all these things are exotic weapons, the new red colouring. Some of them have got new talents, so it is worth considering them. Historian is actually quite a nice weapon. Pakan's got a great talent as well. That is, of course, a fun thing to mess around with. Cassidy is pretty weak unless you run two of them with Lone Star. Then you can get some good use out of it, but if you're using this as a standalone weapon, it is pretty weak. And Centurion Liberator, I've got a video on that anyway. I'll be reviewing all the weapons that I've missed over the kind of coming weeks and whatnot, so do stay tuned for those. But there are actually already a lot of those on the channel. I've reviewed things like Warlord, Pakan, Medved, Historian, etc. So check those ones out. Anyway, custom PF45, expert and commanding, a Vector 45 ACP, determined, skilled and vicious. Don't forget that now that we're in 1.6, these have got critical hit chance back again, so SMGs are actually pretty strong, especially in a last stand in a normalized environment. A lot of people are running around with these right now. Not necessarily the Vector, just SMGs in general. MP5, MP7 are typically the choice weapons. MP5 is good all round and seems to be a lot easier to get a hold of. MP7s do blitz through people, but they are quite rare. I haven't seen one for quite a while. But that being said, SMGs are just really fun to use in last stand. It's kind of a nice little balance point. Assault rifles are still pretty strong at range. SMGs are pretty good up close, so pick and choose that depending on your encounter. This one isn't necessarily a perfect role. It has a couple of interesting talents, but I wouldn't necessarily write home about this one. Tactical SA58, skilled, adept and brutal. Tactical SASG-12K, competent, meticulous and adept. And a surplus SVD with swift, sustained and disciplined. Also a quick reminder that one of the things that people did with the SVD was to use it with the Deadeye set. Of course, the change in 1.6 is that Deadeye no longer works with red dot sights, so if you do want to use it, you have to use one of those scopes that zooms. Also, there's a military LA6 LSW, adept, deadly and unforgiving. Usual kind of thing for gear, just going to scroll through here to give you guys a chance to at least look at what is here. Do bear in mind you want to check these out yourself personally depending on your build, but at least to give you guys an option to sort of look at some of these, then these are the main high-end ones here. So, moving on from there to the mods, you have a prototype electronics mod with skill haste. Don't forget skill haste is a very important talent now, especially given that first aid has a slightly longer cooldown. So skill haste is now something you actively need to spec towards if you want to reduce your cooldowns. Prototype performance mod plus turret damage. Then moving over to the advanced weaponry render, you have a 5.86 Magnum, expert and vicious, a tactical Vector 45 ACP with hurried, talented and swift, G36C with prepared, deadly and focused. Not too bad that one, not exactly the best roll, but you could roll out focused, have something in the free slot and actually have a relatively decent weapon. G36 is of course a nice assault rifle, especially strong in PvE. If you're leaning more towards PvP, then you might want to favour, say, the lightweight M4 or the LVOA-C. But if you're in a position where, say, you're coming back to Division and you just don't necessarily have a decent assault rifle in general, then you could consider picking up a G36 like this. Of course, there may well be better ones later on as we go through the video, but for the time being, this is an alright weapon. Marine Super 90 with predatory, meticulous and destructive, and a SOCOM M1A, talented, adept and unforgiving. Then at the Dark Zone gear vendor, just calling this one out, this nimble holster, not because of nimble, but specifically because it has plus 6% skill haste. So again, if you're looking for a holster with some decent skill haste on, then you might want to consider throwing that on, especially if you guys are working towards maybe a high-end build, or you've got a spare slot, then something to at least think about. And similarly, if you don't want to spend Dark Zone funds and you want to spend normal credits, then the gear vendor also has a nimble holster with plus 6% skill haste. Then jumping over to the Ward Safe House, there is a prototype stamina mod with plus health, and of course health being one of the slightly more dominant factors this time around in 1.6, so you do of course want to spec towards that, so do consider picking that up if you are lacking any health mods. And then finally for the safe houses, turn your attention to the crypt. There is an LVOA-C here. Now it's worth calling out, this does not have a great role, not in the slightest. However, again, I know that a lot of people are making a return to Division around 1.6, and you might well be setting foot into Last Stand and thinking, you know, I need some decent weapons. Now, talent-wise, as mentioned, this is not perfect, but the LVOA-C as a model is definitely one of the highest damage PvP assault rifles, that alongside the lightweight M4. So if you want a decent base weapon, you could grab this and you could roll out talented for something slightly more applicable, maybe something like brutal, Alternatively, you could of course roll out Ferocious, given that that is a PvE focused talent, and then just get something in the free slot, but you would then be stuck with Talented. So know that if you do buy this, this is only going to be at best a 2 out of 3 weapon, and that's even a stretch, but do know that it's a strong base weapon, and if say you're just looking for an assault rifle that will function better than say what you already have, then it could be worth picking this up to at least tide you over. So to reiterate, decent weapon model, very good for PvP, not very good talents. You could probably make something out of it, just know that it wouldn't be a god roll. After that, turning your attention to the Dark Zone, first up in the DZO2 safe house, there is a specialized backpack. So for those of you guys that do want to, say, bolster your skill power without actually having to heavily invest into it, then this is something you could consider. Attribute-wise, you would probably want to roll out one of those things. But again, to reiterate, in 1.6, there is a slightly bigger focus on skill power. So if you don't spec into it in the slightest, then you will definitely find your skills are not as effective as they used to be. So having something like this is an easy way to get some skill power without actually having to sacrifice too much on your stamina or your firearm. So again, something to think about. Then jumping over to DZO3, you have a Rhino Special, of course, the Rhino that allows you to put an optic on this. You also have Expert and Sustained. PP19, very good SMG for PvE. This has Capable, Sustained, and Hurried. Sadly, not the greatest set of talents, but again, just to kind of give you guys some clarity on where the model is useful. Police M4 with Focused, Vicious, and Responsive. A Super 90 with Determined, Self-Preserved, and Accurate. And a First Wave M1A with Sustained, Toxic, and Ferocious. And then finally jumping over to DZ06, just going to show you guys all of the different gear set pieces here. Of course, again, this would depend heavily on your own personal build, but for those of you guys that are interested to see what is available, then these are your options. Pretty cool Sentry Skull holster there with some nice skill haste on it, so again, something to consider, but that's what you can choose from, and of course there are also a couple of new jackets if that's your thing. Then turning your attention to the Dark Zone checkpoint, starting off in East 53rd Street, there is a Navy MP5. Again, not one of those god roll MP5s, but it does come with Accurate, Deadly, and Swift. So again, if you are lacking an MP5, if you're lacking an SMG for, say, Last Stand, you could pick this one up, roll out one of those 2 talents, and then again have a decent weapon. These are nice to use. These are definitely one of the best SMGs to use in PvP, so if you haven't got one, it is at least worth considering picking one up, because this will at least tide you over until you perhaps get a better rolled version. And that, my friends, is pretty much it for this week. Those are the options. So not necessarily a great week, but there are a few things you could consider picking up. They're definitely things that you need to sort of be a little bit more open-minded about and definitely have a sort of a stretch. So I wouldn't say there are any god roll items that you absolutely have to grab this week, but either way, that is your week in 1.6. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Hopefully you found it helpful. A like would be super appreciated. Comment down below with any questions. Also, don't forget to grab that t-shirt if you guys want to. It's available till Sunday. And thanks for watching. Take it easy. Catch you next time. Peace out.